McVay, thank you so much for joining us. We're super excited for this weekend. What you did last week was awesome for the team, the franchise, the city. But before I get into all that, you know me, McVay. I got to ask you a question that I think is more important even than football, okay?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
How are you cleaning poop diapers during the playoffs? Like, what's going on there at home right now?
Hey, listen, I know my role at home. I'm absolutely secondary. I'm not the head coach. If I need to clean up a poop diaper, I'm ready to roll, and nothing above my pay grade there.
All right, even in the playoffs. See, that's admirable, McVay. I love the fact that no matter what, you're getting ready for these Eagles, right, and Jalen Hurts and these guys. But you know what? If the poop diaper calls, you're ready to roll.
Oh, I'm always ready to go. And my son Jordan is not short on personality when it comes to his diapers.
Okay. Is Jordan going to have a brother or sister anytime soon?
I mean, are you putting that kind of pressure on the man already?
Pressure. He's got the Eagles in the cold weather. He's got to travel across country. That's pressure. This other thing is pleasure.
Damn right. That's exactly right. Now, you know what? The funny thing is I always say yes. Now, I'm not the one carrying them, so Veronica's got to be the one to check that one off. But I think we will look to add another one at the appropriate time. My little guy, our hands are full in a good way with him. So, but yeah, we'll definitely look to try to add to the family sooner than later.
Awesome stuff. All right, Sean. So let's talk about what you guys did last week. I already referred to it. What you guys were able to accomplish with all things considered. Was there ever a moment when you thought to yourself, man, this is a lot to take on? Like, this is a huge undertaking. Like, what was your mindset during that process as you guys were moving from L.A. to Phoenix?
Yeah, I think here's what I would say. I think the first thing is you empathize with the people that this really hits home with the amount of, some of the losses just awful, and then obviously the losses of homes and how many, just things that people have truly lost in a bunch of different areas across the city. And then it really hit home when you're sitting there last Thursday, you're practicing on the field, and you see the smoke off in the distance where a big fire ends up starting in an area that is highly populated with coaches and players in terms of where they live. And, you understand the magnitude of it, but that definitely hit a little bit differently. And then you hear, all right, we're going to have to go to Arizona, and the game's moved to Arizona. And you're displacing all types of coaches and players and making sure they're set up in the right hotels, and then you're traveling the next day. So that was when it hit home. But I would also say this, the way that our organization has handled this, the way that our players, our coaches, I couldn't be more proud. And I thought they represented the right way, and that's something that I'll never forget.
Yeah, and Coach, before we get into the game coming up, one more ridiculously detailed question about last week. The Cardinals organization seemed to be really generous with their facilities, and they sent airplanes. Do the Rams have airplanes? I would think the Rams definitely have airplanes if the Cardinals have airplanes. Or was it that they sent their airplanes because there was such a huge traveling party? How did that all work out?
That's right. Yeah, I can't say enough about, just the gratitude that we have for Mr. Bidwell, his organization. I got a chance to talk with him a little bit last week, but for him to offer up some of their planes because we traveled with such a large party in terms of allowing staff and coaches and players to be able to bring their families, it was an incredible display of service. We couldn't have been more appreciative, and just, the overall just flexibility by our staff. I just can't say enough about it, but Mr. Bidwell was first class and wouldn't have been able to pull off what we did if it wasn't for his hospitality that he demonstrated in a variety of ways.
Yeah. Sean, let's talk about that game, though, for a second before we move on to the Eagles this week. I mean, what your defense has been able to do over time here and get better each and every week. You've held your last 4 opponents to single digits, and it's such a young defense. Like, you've been around now for, 7 seasons. What do you make of this particular group? And you've had a lot of good ones, and just kind of not only their promise moving forward, but what they're able to accomplish right now as such an inexperienced group.
Yeah, I think they've just gotten better and better. I think it's a tremendous credit to our defensive coaches, to the flexibility, the coachability of our players, the approach that they take every single day. We've got a lot of youth on that side of the ball, but these guys are fun to work with. They're coachable. They bring it every day in practice. They're so attentive in meetings. and they have great spirit and competitiveness and competitive stamina on game day. They've been a catalyst for a lot of things that have been right about this football team. And we've got, it's a fun group. They energize me, and they've been outstanding, and they certainly delivered in a big way the other night, coming up with 9 sacks, a defensive touchdown. We'll take that any day.
Yeah, and Coach, I guess maybe it was a little under everybody's radar, and probably not yours, but it seems like after the Super Bowl, when Aaron Donald started to talk about retirement, you guys went into the draft and took 2 defensive linemen in the 3rd round. The following year, this past year, you guys went back into the draft, and maybe I don't have all the chronology right, but you then took 2 guys 1st round, 2nd round. So that's 4 guys, essentially, to replace 1 guy, and maybe it's not position for position, but was that purely conscious that when you guys knew Aaron was thinking retirement, it was 1 guy can't replace him, we better get a bunch of bodies, and that's what's happened here over the last few drafts?
Well, I think the first thing is when you go back a couple years and you're talking about Byron Young and Kobe Turner, and you're exactly right on your, on your history. I remember sitting down with Aaron and talking to him about, some of the great players that he was playing alongside that we were going to have to part ways with just because of some of the financial situations that we were in. And he said, as long as these guys love football, I'll be ready to roll with them. And so you bring in Kobe Turner, you bring in Byron Young. Those guys are instrumental in a big way. They saw the way Aaron Donald worked and how much, his leadership impacted the group. They just got better and better. And then when you go get Jared Verse and Braden Fisk, the 4 players you're talking about, not to mention Bobby Brown's already in place. You have a Michael Hoyt who's become a really versatile player. I just really am proud of that group. But, yeah, there was an intentionality, but it was really what was best for our team. And you never replace an Aaron Donald. I mean, when you talk about 1 of 1, I think that term's thrown around loosely. It's not loose to say he's 1 of 1, but I'm really proud of this group. Kobe Turner's leadership, watching the maturity of Byron Young, watching Jared Verse and Braden Fisk just come in and get better and better throughout the course of the year. I love what those guys have been about, and really our defensive line and our outside backer group as a whole.
Sean McVay, the head coach of your Los Angeles Rams, getting ready to take on the Eagles in the divisional round. You can catch it right here in your home of the LA Rams, 710 ESPN. I have a question for you, Sean, just about your tenure, right? Like when you think about these 7 years or whatever it's been now, everyone talks about
8
Sean
years.
McVay. What is it, 8 now? God,
I feel they're dog years. I mean, I'm 38 years old, but I feel like I'm 88.
I mean, I remember when you came in studio when I was doing the show with Keyshawn and LZ, and you were like this young, spry guy. Now you're like this old guy, McVay. Like, what's happening to you here? Like, you're getting old, and I am shortchanging.
I'm still a young, spry guy. Now, you know what? I'll tell you what. Being around these guys, George, this team invigorates me, and really I felt that way last year.
Yeah,
I've loved it. And these seasons, I'll tell you what. Andrew Whitworth has a great line, George, and I love it. This is always a blessing. It's never a burden, and so I couldn't be more grateful. Unfortunately, when you realize the reality of this business, how tough it is, and the changes and things like that occur on a year-to-year basis, you never take for granted what a blessing it is to be in year 8. Being an NFL head coach, living out your dream, and being able to compete in the Final 8 this year, being, our 4th time in 8 years, being in this position, that's something that you're grateful for. And those things don't occur without great people, great players, great coaches, and a great organization.
Well, let me ask you about that kind of, not to make you reflect too far, but just really about how it works now. Like, over time, everyone, came in like, oh, Sean McVay, offensive genius. I think that actually shortchanges you too. Like, I think you've become an incredible head coach, and your involvement as a head coach and a CEO, I would imagine, has evolved over time. You've got this staff that constantly turns over because of the success that you guys have. Like, what have you learned about yourself at year 8, right? That you say to yourself, man, I've had to adapt in this way to allow us to continue to have the sustained success that we're having right now today in 2025.
Yeah, I think that's a cool thing. I appreciate you saying it. And I think it is. I think it's continuing to learn and making sure that, when you're a head coach, what's required might not be the same as it was when you first came in. Your job is to impact and help people in situations you're a part of just get better. And so I think because of the trust that I do have in our coaching staff, you can take your hands off the wheel a little bit more. Make sure that you have you're trusting, but you're trusting these guys to do their job, but you're verifying. You're able to be a little bit more connected with the team instead of exclusively just being so heavily involved with the offense, even though that's where your background lies. And And I've really gotten enjoyment about being involved in all phases, but more importantly, being a little bit more connected to the total team. You know, I've always naturally, when you're calling plays for the offense, you have a little bit more time with the offense, but it's been pretty balanced. I feel connected with the staff, the players, and that to me has really been fulfilling and gratifying. And and that's what's been really fun, because it's been a little bit different approach than maybe in previous years. It started to tilt that way these last couple of years, and I'm really loving it. And I think the biggest thing is you're surrounded by great people that you can trust. And then you got great players that, man, your goal is saying, man, I just don't want to let them down. I want to do right by them and the people that you love and care about. And when you have that, man, it's easy for your cup to be full.
Coach, I had to go back yesterday and rewatch this Rams-Eagles game from Week 12 because I really forgot about what happened.
Why would you do that?
Well,
why would you do that?
You know what? Because honestly, like if you looked at the score 37-20 and you didn't see the game, you might think that it was competitive. The fact is, Cooper Kupp scored a touchdown late in the game to make it 37-20, and then you guys missed the two-point conversion. But off the top of my head, there was at least 3 times the ball was on the ground. Kyron had 2 fumbles, recovered 1. Matthew fumbled once. The offensive line had a very hard time with Philly's defensive pressure. The defensive line got to Jalen Hurts only 1 time. They didn't have their second-best receiver, and yet A.J. had over 100 yards receiving. And really, it all came down to the running game, where they had over 255 yards rushing, and 2 of those carries were about 140 yards total. So I guess when I look back, I realized they really dominated, and yet I think the Rams are better now. How can this game be different from the last time?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing that you said is we don't put the ball on the ground when we're on the 17-yard line on our 5th play offensively. When we go right down the field, you come away with no points. Here's what it is. It's about playing complementary football. These guys, they do a great job of it. We had cut it to a 1-possession game in the third quarter at 20-13, but, we didn't do a good enough job, and it always starts with me. We didn't put the players in good enough spots. And ultimately, then we can execute a little bit better. But here's the thing I love about that game. When you have the right kinds of people, humbling experiences are where real growth ops occur. And that's why we were 5-6. And since then, I think our guys had more intentionality in terms of how we practiced. I think there was a sense of urgency raised from our coaching staff. And I think that's why we were able to go 5-0 to finish the season. Obviously, we came up short against Seattle when we took a different approach. And then I thought that carried over, being fresh, being ready to go against the Minnesota Vikings. So, hey, we got a ton of respect. But I'll say this, we respect everyone, but we don't fear anybody, and we look forward to the challenge so that I don't have to listen to you read off all those stats you just did.
Well, like you said after the game, we're built for this.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
This is a team that at 1-4. Yeah, because at 1-4, Coach, you remember a lot of people were are they going to trade Cooper Kupp? Are they going to fire sale this thing?
Are they trading Matthew Stafford? Don't forget that one that was out there.
That was the discussion back then.
Shoot, hey, you never know, but you know what? I love this group, and we're looking forward to swinging. And I can promise you we're going in there swinging, and we know what a great challenge it is. But here we freaking go.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you about Stafford real quick. And the numbers are wild. Since he's been a Ram, he's 18-3 in December, January, and February. And we know, obviously, the one that culminated in a ring. And again, it's not easy, I think, in sports. I think one of the hardest things to do is coach kind of a, quote-unquote, aging superstar. And, he's on the back end of his career, but yet still unbelievable. When you watch him, I mean, you gave him a week off, and he looked like he was brand new again. Like, what has he done to continue to play at this level and allow you guys to sustain this success and hopefully continue this moving forward?
Yeah, he's a great player. He's an igniter. He elevates everyone around him. I think he's at his best in those most important moments. I think you have to have incredible competitive stamina to be able to sustain a career like he has, to be at his best towards the latter parts of the season when the stakes are the highest. And he loves it. That's why you start off 10 for 10 against an excellent defense last week. Making great decisions, was in complete and total control. And this week, even though it's a little bit different in terms of their approach, this is, you look at the Vikings, one of the best defenses. The Eagles are one of the best defenses too. We relish these opportunities. And when he's at the switch, he gives a confidence to everybody that we have a chance. And I love working with him. He's been outstanding.
Hey, Coach, one time on the radio station, probably about 2 years ago, you were asked if the offense is too reliant on Cooper Kupp. And now we see that Cooper's numbers, especially over the last 5-6 weeks, are down significantly. Is that just the way the game goes, or is that a conscious effort? Because, listen, whether he's catching balls or not, he is participating in helping this team win. I mean, his blocking is outstanding. It's like Hines Ward-esque. So is it circumstantial that he's not putting up the numbers?
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make. He's impacting the game, even though it might not be just illustrated on the stat sheet. And then when you look at it too, Scott, there's a couple of these games where the goal is to play to be able to win the game. And you could say conservative. I thought there was a couple of the games that, we played smart based on the weather in San Francisco. He had a big game against the Buffalo Bills when that was what was required. We didn't throw it as much the other day because once we got up 27-3, we were a little bit limited. But I thought his catch on the go ball versus zero blitz on third down was a huge play in the game. Yep. And really, I think it's a credit to, to the offense being able to have a bunch of guys that can step up and make plays. Cooper is still certainly one of them. And we're going to need him to be great to be able to advance to the Final Four against a great opponent this week. But he's impacting the game in different ways, and I'm really proud of him.
All right, and last one for me, Sean, and thank you so much for taking the time leading into this game against the Eagles. Of course, you can catch it right here on the home of the Rams, 710 ESPN. Obviously, defensively, Scott started to allude to it when he was rewatching the game, and you questioned why he was doing that. But, with them offensively, you got to pick your poison. Saquon Barkley's an MVP candidate. Jalen Hurts has won at the highest levels. Like, they've got two guys on the outside that are incredibly explosive. How do you try to mitigate how explosive they can be with those types of guys?
Yeah, you got to pick and choose your spots. You can't have it all those ways. That's what makes them such a great team, such a tough offense to be able to stop. But you have to be able to decide on where the areas of focus and concentration, where are the times that you can earn the opportunity to be able to maybe put the pen back in your hand. But there's a reason why they're a great offense. But we have to be able to play with the fundamentals and the techniques and do the little things the right way. And like I said, it starts with us putting our guys in the right spots and then them being able to go execute. And the enemy has a say, and this group has a bunch of different ways that they can make you pay. But like I said, we're excited about the challenge. We know what it's going to take and what's going to be required, and we have to go do it. And all the talk doesn't really mean anything. But what happens when we kick off at 3 p.m. in Philly, we're about that life, and we're excited about it.
I love it.
I tell you what, man. I tell you what, this Sean McVay, man, he can coach, man. I'll tell you that right now. It reminds me of back talking to his grandpa back down in Dayton back in those days. I'll tell you that right now.
All right. How's Kappy's Gruden? Go ahead.
That's pretty good. I'll give you that one. I bet you probably do one of me, too.
Well, I'm working on you right now. You're very similar.
A little raspier. Raspier.
You and I talked about this last time when we were at the casino last year. Gruden was one of my coaches in college, and I can remember him coming up to me one day and go, Kaplan, I'll tell you something, man. I'll tell you, you were one of the best kickers in college football when I got here, man. What happened to you, man? I'll tell you. I don't know, man. I don't know what happened to you, man.
That's pretty. That is pretty good. I've heard his Barstool stuff is pretty entertaining, so I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yeah. He's funny, man.
And he is. He's great. Obviously, he's great at the X's and O's and all that stuff for sure. One last thing we got to let you know because we got to be transparent with you, Sean. So one of our producers here, DeAndre, he's an Eagles fan. So I just wanted to let you know we're all in your corner. But unfortunately, DeAndre is in enemy. He's in enemy territory right now on this show.
Well, that's good. Well, hey, hopefully if I'm sitting here talking to you next week, we can make DeAndre eat his freaking words.
Damn right. I'll tell you what, those words are pretty good, man. Tastes like a Philly cheesesteak with whiz, man.
Oh, man. McVay, you are the best. Best of luck, man. Thank you so much. Good luck. Go kick some ass, man. Thanks again.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, appreciate it, guys.
All right, see ya. There he is, the great Sean McVay with us here.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
See, I don't care who it is, and I don't care what sport it is. Coaches still scare me.
Yeah?
So I like to call Coach.